What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. Today I'm joined by Chris Morrison of Mother of Graves, Indianapolis melodic death metal, doom metal band. What would you guys classify yourself as?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, first of all. Melodic death doom is normally what I say if people are asking. That covers it mostly.
Gotta take this my blood incantation shirt. I forgot was behind me, and it's gonna pop up in the video every now and then. But it's new badass shirt, new album. You guys have a
That
new
shot.
album too.
I saw that shirt when you got up there from your chair a minute ago. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I do love it. Yeah, you guys just had a new album come out. You guys did a follow up for Where the Shadows Adorn, which came
hmm
out in 2022. And you just released the Period of Absence last
Yeah,
week. Last week,
the period of absence.
yeah,
Yeah, we say that.
however you want
Yeah,
to say it.
however. Yeah, that just came out October 18th on Profound Lore Records. Reception's been pretty awesome over the past few days since it came out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was telling you right before we got on the podcast. I know you recently did an interview with our one of our writers slash editors, Jake, on the website, which you can go to lambgoat.com and read about if you want to, not just sit through this. But I know in the chat that we have on the Discord, the guys have been kind of talking about the album. They really enjoyed it, and yeah, just Chris is a longtime fan of you guys, and I think he lives in your area. So I
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
that's kind of how you guys popped up on our radar, I guess, because you're technically kind of more of a newer band. I don't say you're not baby faced or anything like that, but you guys, the debut album came out in 2022, but you guys started a couple years before that. Like, so how did you guys get together? Because that's not like, I'm sure it's not your first project or anything like that. So how did this band come to fruition?
Yeah, yeah. So we formed in 2019. So like a few years before that, one of my best friends passed away, unfortunately, a tragic accident, like the night after one of the shows with my old band. And after that, I just kind of didn't do anything for a while. I was, he, that was the only band I was in at the time. So that band obviously ended, and I was just depressed and bummed and grieving. And then I eventually started picking up the guitar again and started, just staying up at night and just playing things. Starting to get back into it. And the stuff I was playing, it was helping me process the grief I was feeling at the time. So it was like sad shit I was listening to, So I was playing sad shit. Um, Listening to a lot of the older death doom stuff that if you've heard of my band now, that like we're obviously influenced by. So we were doing that, and then I had some songs put together basically on my own. Had no idea this was ever going to be an actual band at that point. But I my buddy Ben, who's in Mother of Graves with me now, and he was in a band called Harakiri with me back in the day. Known him for many years. He's got a studio, and so I wanted to get his help, just putting these ideas I had down on tape.
Hmm.
Um, and so like once we started doing that, and he was helping me finish write up a couple bits of it too, like on some places where I was stuck, we listened to these early demos and we were like, this is pretty good, I think, this is pretty awesome. We should actually, try to do something with this. So we brought in a friend to do vocals on one track, and then he didn't want to do the band, so we kept writing, and then we found Brandon, and we were like, we should probably just make this a real band, and we got Don on board and our old bassist TJ, and back then we recorded a demo song that somehow got picked up and put on the Metal Blade comp, and
Hmm.
then yeah, and then Sean at Wiseblood, he talked to us first, and then yeah, we put out our initial EP, and then went on to do the Where the Shadows Adorn full length, a couple years later. So yeah, I mean that's the formation. The band was formed out of the loss of a friend, and we still try to keep those themes going throughout our music now, like loss and grief and love and just life, whatever it brings at you. We're a fairly serious band, I guess, in that aspect.
Yeah, is that where the name kind of gets its comes from too? Because the accident and all that stuff, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely ties into it. When I was looking for a name, I wanted something to reflect, like the loss aspect of it. But it's also my mom's from Latvia. I don't know if you know where
mm,
Latvia is, but
hmm.
so I was just kind of reading up on like Latvian like like folklore and mythology and things like that. And I came across the Kapu Mate, which translates roughly to Mother of Graves, and it's that goddess figure in Latvian mythology is like the protector of graves and that protector of those that have passed on. So I thought it was kind of fitting and kind of cool, paying like respect to my mom's side of the family there and to all those that we've lost and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it is a very cool name. I'll give you that. That's for sure.
Awesome, thanks,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So how did yeah, like, do you have any idea of how was the Afraid the single that got picked up on the comp? Was that the one?
No, it was In Somber Dreams.
Okay.
Afraid was the very first song that we finished. And that's not Brandon singing on that track. It's Matt from Harakiri, me and Ben's old band.
Mm-hmm.
We just had him come in and do that for us, and then we just never decided to redo that song. But no, In Somber Dreams, like so Sean at Wise Blood, he started talking to us, and we decided to sign with him for that EP, and he writes for Decibel as well. And I guess Albert at Decibel was helping Metal Blade curate the Metal Blade compilation,
Mm.
and Sean kind of pitched him some ideas of like bands that he was thinking about working with on his label, and for whatever reason we got the nod and got to have a song on there, which was really cool. Having never played live before, never really done shit, like okay, we'll be on this Metal Blade comp. Why not?
Yeah, yeah, cool. Prior to, I mean, because you were talking about your band, your previous band, Harikari, which was that was like almost 2 decades prior to this band, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we formed that band back in like 1997, and we're active until like 2003 or 2004, somewhere in there.
So,
Yeah.
uh, so in the between that time and Mother of Graves, obviously you said you were in a different band, but did you guys put like how serious of a band was it, like, or how serious of a bands did you do between Harikari and Mother of Graves?
Yeah. So like, so Harakiri, like we kind of stopped doing stuff. We were a pretty serious band. We stopped doing stuff around 2004. Then I was also playing in like a melodic hardcore kind of punk band called About the Fire. And we just did like local stuff. We didn't tour or anything like that, but we played some awesome local shows back then. And then, yeah, that band fizzled out. I quit that band eventually. And then, oh man, yeah, the bassist, my buddy Worm, who's the bassist in About the Fire, and he's the one who passed away. We formed a band called Bullet Wolf after I quit About the Fire, just because I wanted to keep playing with him.
Mm.
And so we brought on Don, who is now in Mother of Graves. He's our drummer. And so yeah, we were just a fun band. We just drank beer and like would play local bars and party basically. And it was kind of like a stoner rock doom trashy kind of rock band. I don't even know what we'd call ourselves. We were totally not serious, but we were just having a lot of fun. We did that until Jeremy Worm passed away. And then mixed in there to keep me busy, I had a barbecue business too. So like
Oh,
kind of
nice. We'll get into
kept
that.
doing. What's that?
We can get into that later, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm interested to talk about that. But yeah, so like you guys, I find it curious that you guys found your way onto like a Metal Blade comp through Wise Guy, obviously, or whatnot. And but like you now are on last year, yeah, 2023. Last year, you guys signed with Profound Lore. Why not Metal Blade? Did they never like reach out, like, or was there never a
Yeah.
discussion between the two parties, or just like, yeah, we'll allow you on this comp and that's about it?
You know what? They never contacted us, and we never contacted them to try to,
Mm.
do anything. I mean, that would have been cool, but hey, we're happy with our home now. No, like, so Profound Lore, like, we had no plans. Like, we weren't even thinking about anything after Where the Shadows Adorn came out. And then Chris at Profound Lore, I found an email from him in the inbox, and he was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing for the next album?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't know yet,
Mhm.
but oh, holy shit, thanks for writing because I love your label." And yeah, so I mean, we had interest from a few different labels, but ended up going with Profound Lore, best deal, and one of our favorite labels. So
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, again, I'm not saying Profound is a second tier label by any means, but because you had the previous exposure on Metal Blade, maybe it's just like a one of those like missed connection type things where no one made the first move. You know what I mean? And You'll
I don't
never
know.
know. You
I'm
never
sure
know.
Metal Blade wants their bands to like tour like incessantly and do all that
Hmm.
stuff, and we're not that kind of band. We're not going to go do that. We've got families at home, and we just start. We'll go play out and we'll do some short tours, but there's no way I'm hitting the road for like 6 months out of the year.
No, you don't want to be a road dog.
No, not at all.
Have you ever had to do something like? Have you ever had extended tours like away from from life? Not as
Not
Mother's Graves, but like in general in your like history of
Yeah,
playing. Yeah.
yeah, like Harakiri did tours, like a few weeks here and there, back then. But man, I was like in my 20s or whatever, and didn't have kids and responsibilities. So yeah, like right now, man, we'll tour. We're not going to go out that long, but like we've been fortunate to get invited onto some cool like festivals, like Denver's Decibel Metal and Beer Fest out
Hmm.
in Denver. So we flew out to that, and that was awesome. And then like Northwest Terra Fest out in Seattle, we got invited to do that, which was really cool. So like we're kind of focusing on quality over quantity, I guess.
I get
So
you. I get you. What is like? What's the ideal touring situation for Mother of Graves? Then is it just like a week or two here, or is it more weekender, like a like festival appearance type things? Or
I mean, yeah, ideally, man, we love the short runs, like we'll if we get booked on a cool festival somewhere, we'll do like a couple shows on the way out, go do the festival and come home. And that's worked out great for us so far. But we did an East Coast run last summer, I believe it was. Yeah, so that I mean, went up to New York City and everything, which is cool. I think we did like 4 shows. That was cool, but like a week here and there is great, extended weekends here and there. Like I said, man, we've all got kids, we've all got, families and jobs. We're just not in a point in our musical career where we care to hop in a van with each other for a month. It just
yeah.
doesn't sound
How
appetizing.
how does that work? Like, how does that work as a selling point, or maybe not a selling point when you're getting signed by labels? Like when you're in discussion with labels, like just because
Yeah.
like that's also a part of the way that the record gets played out and exposure, and you can sell more merch, sell fans and stuff like that. How does that fall into like discussions with getting your record put out and whatnot? Like, what are some of the
Yeah.
drawbacks or positives from that?
So it's definitely, a consideration for a lot of labels. We were talking to another label, and their A&R guy really wanted to sign us, and great label, great guy. But I was straight up. I was like, hey man, we aren't going to tour like you probably want us to, and he didn't mind. But the owner of the label was like, I'll sign him, but I'm not going to give him very much money to record. Like we can't do it, which is understandable. So like that wasn't a fit for us. But like some labels don't really care. They're more about just the music and like how far if they like the album, how far they can push it, and it's not like we're inactive and not playing any shows. Like we work our asses off on promotion and everything too, and we do we have some decent connections to get on some decent shows. So it was actually never really part of the conversation with Profound Lore. I think I might have mentioned that we weren't planning on like touring extensively, and he didn't care, and he gave us really friendly deal, honestly. So, but I mean, some labels care about it, some labels don't. The bigger labels tend to care more.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys don't have, I mean, how many shows do you guys play within like a calendar year? Do you know? Like,
Oh, geez. Um, no, like I mean, honestly, we haven't played as a band. We haven't played, I mean, 25 shows or less, probably.
that's
Just as,
insane.
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like 20. It's like 5 years, so five a year maybe,
Yeah, like the first, like, yeah,
including like the inception of the band. And there's like time where you're like writing and doing other stuff, not playing shows, but
yeah,
five a
yeah.
year, including that.
I'd have to go count, man. Like I could be off, but it's something like that. I mean, like I said, we don't we're not one of those bands that's going to play locally every weekend or anything like that. We play Indianapolis like once or twice a year, and then yeah, just our little outings and everything. So it's kind of weird, because most bands, play a shit ton, and we're lucky to get some decent offers for cool things without having had to do that.
Put the
Not that I'm against playing live. Playing live is fun, but I'm much more into, writing and recording and that sort of thing.
They are drastically different for sure. Like a lot of people enjoy one or the other, and I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
people do enjoy both too. I mean, that's part of the reason why a lot of people get into this, world. But you can definitely tell that some people like the behind the closed doors settings, but rather than the live settings. So I get that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
oh man, I lost my train of thought when I was just mentioning that. But I was going to ask you something else about the shows and whatnot. But we'll move on. You mentioned you had a barbecue business, and it's lunchtime around here, and I'm thinking about getting lunch. And barbecue is something. I'm from Florida, and we do a lot of barbecue down here too. And I've been to different places of the world, of the country, like all over the Southeast, Tennessee, Texas, and everything like that. And I've not that I'm a barbecue connoisseur, but I think that the style that we have down here is probably my favorite that I've had. Maybe North
Yeah,
Carolina. I like North Carolina because it's like a lot of vinegary based sauces and stuff like that. But
sure.
expound a little bit on Indianapolis barbecue if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, sure. If I'm going to get back to, I want to ask you about Florida barbecue.
Go ahead. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
There is, I mean, there's no Indianapolis barbecue style. Like that's not a thing. But I don't, so I got really into, I've always loved to cook and like I started grilling, many years ago. And then I think I started watching like barbecue pitmasters or something like that, one of those like barbecue competition shows like a number of years back. And I decided I was going to buy a smoker and learn how to do competition barbecue. So I bought myself a Weber Smoky Mountain and built what they call them a UDS, an ugly drum smoker. You get like a 55-gallon
Mm-hmm.
barrel and you make a smoker out of it. So I did that in my backyard and did my research on like a bunch of cookbooks and videos on how to cook KCBS, Kansas City Barbecue Society style, you know, meats or whatever. And so, yeah, me and my buddy Jamie, we formed a competition team called Black Metal Barbecue and entered our first competition. God, I don't remember what year that was, 2016, 17, somewhere in there. But we set up, and all these people in their big trailers all around us with like these like $10,000 smokers and things like that. We roll up with like our little kettle grill and homemade smoker that had like grass like stuck to the side of it from where I like mowed my lawn when it was wet and it just stuck to the smoker and people are staring at us. And we didn't win the whole thing, but we ended up getting calls, like for like I think it was like second place in pork and like our ribs were good and like we got money and trophies on our first time out, so we were just like totally addicted to
That'll
doing
do
the
it.
competition. Yeah, so we got into that, and then we eventually ended up buying one of those like trailers, and I bought a huge smoker and put it on the back of it, and people started saying, "Hey, man, you guys should start selling this stuff. It's great." And so yeah, we started up Black Metal Barbecue as a food truck and catering business, cooking our style of barbecue. I came up with my own rub recipe,
Is it
and
dry? So it's a dry rub.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, we did some like sauce stuff, but dry rub barbecue mostly. And I would say our style was a mix between Texas barbecue and that competition style barbecue. Competition style barbecue in the KCBS realm is it's got a huge flavor pop. It's pretty sweet with a little bit of spice, but you have to wow those judges in just like one bite. So it
Mm-hmm.
has to like really kick and really grab somebody's attention. So we kind of mixed that with the more Texas style on our briskets with heavy pepper seasoning and like real wood smoke. So
Interesting.
yeah, man, it was a fun time. And then eventually, like before the pandemic hit, we sold it just because it was getting to be really hard to juggle life and do that at the same time.
So you guys no longer do you don't have the barbecue thing anymore?
No, no.
Uh,
Yeah, we sold that stuff. We might get back into doing the competitions again someday. But now I cook for family and friends right now mostly.
Interesting. Yeah. When it comes to barbecue, I have to admit the dry rub is not my favorite, and Texas is also not my favorite. I've had
Yeah,
it. I've had it a couple times. I mean, obviously, it's probably like where you go
sure.
is very important. But someone I've listened to fucking Joe Rogan's podcast for years, and he's since moving to Austin has talked nonstop about Terry Blacks. So when I was there earlier this year, I stopped by there and I had like this like $65 plate for lunch, and I was like not thoroughly impressed, which I was bummed. I was wanting to be like my mind blown or whatever, but it
Yeah,
just wasn't there for me. But again, it's probably that particular establishment. Not that I'm saying it's horrible or anything. It just wasn't my taste. And
Yeah.
I'm just so used to, like there's a place that I used to live in Tampa. It was called like I forget the actual name, but it was like Alabama style barbecue,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and that was really fucking good. And then North Florida, here where I live, Northeast Florida, it's like I basically live in South Georgia. North Florida is where I'm like located in Jacksonville here,
yeah,
and it's very southerny and this a lot of sauce, and I like sauce. I guess like my
yeah,
condiment.
man.
I'm a condiment kind of guy. That's why the dry rub doesn't really do it for me. But yeah, I'm big into I guess the New York, never New York, the North Carolina style,
Mhm.
the sauce and vinegar sauces and stuff like that. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
my wheel space is at for that kind of stuff.
Dude, I'm into that too. People talk shit on like barbecue sauce, but nah, man, like a good rack of ribs with like a awesome, like sticky, kind of spicy, sweet,
Yeah,
tangy sauce on there is amazing. And so we when we were doing catering, we did a whole hog a few times, where you cook
yeah,
a full pig, and we'd have a buffet of sauces, but we would do like that Carolina vinegar style sauce mostly when we did the whole hog. 'Cause, I mean, it was kind of
hmm
like the influence and the style for that. And man, it's so good. I also like a mustard sauce, like
yes.
a vinegary mustard sauce, man. That stuff's so good.
I just went to I went to a barbecue place last week. I tried it out. I probably won't go back, but I tried it out, and their mustard sauce was like you had to like go get it from the bar. I was like, "What is?" And they had like six of them on the table. It was like six different sauces, but the mustard one was behind the bar or something like that. I was like, that's where my wheelhouse is. That's where I want to go. But
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never done the full pig. That's on the. I'd love to do the full pig.
Oh man, it's super fun and challenging, and yeah, and it's just awesome when you get to like try the different like muscle groups and everything, like
Yeah.
just the different flavors and textures. Like it's really cool. Like it's you stay up all night doing it. It's fun.
Do you do you remember what did you give the judges that like because you said you had one bite, and I know there's different types of barbecue. Obviously, I don't know if it's like a brisket competition or pulled pork or ribs because you what do you know what it was that like wowed them over, got you guys
Yeah,
the win?
so in the KCBS competitions, you have to turn in chicken, ribs, brisket, and pork shoulder, like pork butt,
Mm,
like pulled pork or whatever. Um, and mostly our brisket always, not always, but it usually did really well. We had that down. But our pulled pork, it was pretty much always getting a trophy at some point. Like and I don't know, man, like we would sit there and taste it like before we made our like pretty little boxes and turned it in. And like we would know if it was like gonna hit that day or not. Like it was, and then you get the comment cards back and people are just like, what?
yeah. Pull up. I have to stop myself from getting pulled pork when I go to places. I have like because I just was so ingrained of getting that over the years of when I go to the barbecue establishments. So I started like branching out a lot more and like you know I'll do turkey every now and then too, just because I like turkey in general. But it's
Yeah.
not it's not like I don't that's not like my go to barbecue thing. But um, ribs were always when I was younger. I was a rib guy, and then it moved to pulled pork because it was cheaper for one when I was buying it myself. So I could get a
Yeah.
little bit more and get some carbs in there. But brisket is just something it's hit or miss with me, and I think a lot of it has to do with the outside peppered crust. You know what I mean? Which I don't
Yeah.
know if
And I mean,
I don't know if I'm a fan of it all the time. I love pepper and salt and all that other shit, but like sometimes it's like, ooh, that's a lot.
yeah, yeah. It depends on the place. And I can't eat brisket if somebody like undercooks it and it's like tough and like the fat's not
Yeah.
rendered. Like it's terrible if it's undercooked. People are always on Reddit and stuff like, why is my brisket tough? Because you pulled it off like 3 hours too early, dude. Like,
There's so much. How long does it take for I mean, like, there's so much work and care that goes into like I know brisket for sure. It's like,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I cook hotter than a lot of people. I'll cook my pit's going to be at like 300 degrees. A lot of people will be down at 225. At
mm,
225, depends on the size of the brisket. It could take 15 hours, or something like that. But I get mine done in like 10 hours, like not including like the rest time afterwards. Because once you
mm,
pull it off there, you want to like
yeah.
wrap it up and let it chill for a while.
Yeah, I've gone down many rabbit holes on YouTube and Instagram reels of like people smoking meats or cooking meats and stuff like that. I've also seen, like you were saying, like the drum smoker. I've seen like a filing cabinet smoker, where they
Oh
have,
yeah.
that I've seen that. I've seen a bunch of random things like that. Well, now that we've spent like a good 15 minutes talking about barbecue and lost most of all the music fans on this podcast, let's get back into the music, man.
Sure, sure.
The question I was going to ask prior was, because you guys don't play out that often and whatnot, what do you think attribute to like some of the success that you guys have seen over the last couple of years, with releasing just releasing your current album, but I mean with the past two releases.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, we were super lucky to get hooked up with Sean and Wiseblood because he had connections. Like I said, we didn't know we were going to be a band and do anything. We were just going to record these songs and kind of just whatever, just see what happened. Um, but then, he was starting this label and he had connections and he got it into the hands of, reviewers and, magazine people and everything who apparently took a liking to us and got our name out there pretty quickly as a very young band. And as far as the band, like we're pretty relentless, like promoters. I'm on social media. People hate that shit. I hate social media too, but
You
I
got
don't
to
know.
do it.
I want people to hear our stuff, man. So like, if I'm putting all this work into it, I'm gonna promote it. So I've worked on building a community, like on metal Twitter. I call it Twitter. I'm not gonna call it X. Um,
We don't either.
yeah, yeah, and Facebook. Like I hate Facebook, but I've tried to build a community, around like-minded people. Try to get our stuff in the hands of people who might like melodic death doom. Like that's not really a huge genre here either. More so overseas, but. I don't know, man. We work hard. We were lucky with the connections that we made early on. Found some fans who could you know, who were willing to give us, write-ups in Decibel and, get us reviewed in awesome magazines and, do stuff with Lambgoat and things like that. So I don't know. And I like our music and apparently other people do. So we have record labels willing to work with us and people willing to buy it. And I couldn't be more appreciative.
How did Wise Guys get like a hold of like your material in general? Like, what was the relationship
So
like with Sean prior?
yeah, I didn't know Sean until he reached out. He had moved, I think, from New York to Indy, and going to metal shows and stuff. I guess I don't know, but he hooked up with Corey from the band Apostle of Solitude.
Mm-hmm.
They're a doom metal band from here, and I guess Sean was just talking about starting a label, and he kind of wanted to keep it regional. And Corey recommended he check us out because I think at that time we had just released that Afraid single. And we're working on, the In Summer Dreams EP or just the songs for it. And so Sean checked us out and apparently liked it. And just next thing I knew, I was on a Zoom call with him. He was giving me a pitch to be the first signing to his record label, and you know, that's history.
Yeah, and then like you said, the rest is history. What would be like a because you guys didn't think about being like a legit band in the beginning, or you at least didn't think about being a legit band with this particular project in the beginning. What would be
Yeah.
like the end goal for Mother of Graves? Like, what do you see Mother of Graves, doing in the next couple of years? Obviously, you've got two LPs under your belt. You got an EP out early on. Like, what you know?
Man, like honestly, our goal as a band is just to, write music that we enjoy. It really is a cathartic release for all of us. I'm in my 40s, the other guys are mostly in their 40s or close to it, and it's just a great outlet for us, like personally. The fact that other people like it too is amazing. So like, and there's no end goal. Just to keep doing what we're doing it on our own terms, like not being forced to, drop everything and go on tour for a year and just, you know, um, honestly, yeah, continuing what we're doing, just continuing to release albums that are meaningful to us and that hopefully resonate with other people. Hopefully, getting on cool festival appearances. Hopefully, going over to Europe and doing a short run over there, hitting some festivals eventually. Yeah, man. Other than that, we just write for us and hope other people come along for the ride.
Yeah, I would like to think that those European runs are going to be your longest runs as a band, probably because it's you got to make
Probably.
do with what you're doing over there. You can't go over there like on the. There's no weekenders going down over in Europe. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I mean?
know, right? Well, I mean, I'd be stoked to get on a one of those cool open air festivals and then just do a few shows on each side of that and make a week out of it or whatever.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
it gets real tricky. It could be 2 weeks to 3 weeks real quick out there, especially in
Yeah.
festival season, though.
I have to bring my family for that one, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to. That's how a lot of bands seem to be doing it these days. Anyway, if they can, obviously, it's more expensive to do that, so I
Yeah.
understand why they can't. But
I mean, we mostly like when we flew out to Denver to play that Decibel Metal Fest. I think all of us brought our families, well, most of us brought our families out there too, and just kind of made a little mini vacation out of it. And it worked out great.
hell yeah,
So,
dad metal all the way.
right? Exactly. As long as people buy merch, we can like, pay for our plane tickets or whatever.
I got that. Um, what are some of the influences of like how'd you get into that melodic death doom metal? Like you said earlier, it's not that big of a scene over here. It's bigger in Europe. Obviously, a lot of people that are into metalheads over here are very in tune of what's going on overseas because
Yeah.
they're very big over there. Metal's very big over there. So like how'd you fall down the cracks and to get into the world of melodic death doom?
Yeah, man. So like I had been into like I was mostly into like technical and heavy death metal, back in the day. But
Got the Slayer
I had
poster, got the Slayer flag, so we know you're into that.
yeah, right. I really got into Edge of Sanity though, when Purgatory Afterglow came out, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that, Dan has some super melodic and awesome riffs throughout his catalog, but on that album especially, the song Twilight, like it's probably my favorite song, not just metal song, like of all time. I love that song. It's heavy, it's melodic, it's awesome. And so that's always stuck with me. I think a lot of our like lead work on our releases is like inspired by that song and a lot of Edge of Sanity stuff. But from there, some of the bands that he worked with, and then other bands, like Paradise Lost, the early Catatonia stuff, um, and then like the old Tiamat records, things like that. But like when my friend died, I had always liked that stuff. But when my friend died, that genre, that miserable death doom melodic genre, just really, really resonated like hard.
Mm.
Like it was just like, okay, this is exactly what I need to be listening to right now. And that I had always liked it, but it really, really started to hit. And My Dying Bride and like just all that stuff just felt right. I was sad, and that shit was sad too. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
And that just influenced my writing from there. And then at that point, after playing like technical death metal and like more brutal stuff and like stonery riffs, like I found it really fun to like focus on playing melodic guitar bits, instead of, up and down the neck and doing all that. So like focusing on melody and like songwriting became really fun. And I've always liked, sad, sorrowful music. Like even going back to when I was a kid, listening to, you know, Midwestern like hardcore was often like melodic and like emotional. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my favorite bands from around here did a lot of cool like sad arpeggiated guitar parts, and it was just very emotional. So it was fun to kind of start writing that stuff myself.
What did you cut your teeth at? Like, because you were saying that you're a big melodic hardcore fan. Like, when you were a younger Chris, what were you cutting your teeth on? Like, in the music scene, like, what got you into like the underground?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I it was skateboarding basically. I was a skateboarder like when I was a little kid, probably starting at like 11 years old or something like that. But then when I became like 13, I'd buy, Thrasher, Transworld whatever skate magazines I could get my hands on. And I was listening to, whatever uh, pop music. But then I started getting into, Metallica and stuff like that. But then I would get the skateboard magazines and I'd find the ads for like the punk rock record labels, and I would get into punk rock. And then I'd go to skate shops and go skate with people, and they'd have like band names like written on their grip tape, and so I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, what is that, man? Exploited, dude. So like listen to Exploited, and then first time I ever heard Slayer was because somebody had a Slayer logo like carved into the grip tape on their skateboard. I was like, oh, I gotta check that out. My friend's like, man, I don't know, it's pretty heavy. Yeah, so I got into that, and then I found out, hey, there's like local shows, and I found like the local punk and hardcore bands. So like, I was like 14, 15 years old going to shows, seeing kids just a little bit older than me, like have a room just mosh pit going wild and everything. And so, yeah, man, I don't know, local punk and hardcore really got me going when I was like 15 years old.
When did you start picking up the guitar? Was it around that time, or was it slightly before? Or
Slightly before. My aunt gave me an acoustic guitar when I was a little kid for like Christmas or something because her husband had one sitting around their house, and she noticed every time I would come over, I would just like go pick that up and just mess with it for hours. So she finally got me a guitar. Um, I took a little bit of then my parents got me my first electric guitar and made me take lessons. So like learning Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever. And
Hmm.
then I hated that, but I just stuck with it and started learning how to, play very simple songs, some of the punk and hardcore stuff, and eventually just, started writing my own stuff. But yeah, it was around 19 92, 93 when I started really getting into not I wouldn't say I really got into playing guitar. I got really into the idea of being in a band. And so like me and one of my best friends, we started a band, barely knowing how to play our instruments. So
Yeah, yeah. It's the
I've always
drive.
been in a band for most of my life.
Yeah, it's the drive. You're like, now I got to learn.
Yeah, right. I'm
It's
still not very good, but I can buy enough. That's why I write my own music so I can be sure that I can actually play it.
Did you guys do you the writing and recording is what you guys really mainly focus on. Do you do that in house for the most part? Like, do you have like a little setup where you're at, and is that where like the records are also recorded and they're just mastered and mixed elsewhere, or do you go to a different like, not to poo on anyone's setup, but like a more legit setup, more legit studio?
Sure, sure. So Ben, our other guitarist, he has a home studio set up. And everything we've done, we've recorded there, except for tracking drums. We went to Azimuth Studios this time to track the drums, just because he doesn't have a good room to set up for a drum sound and to, get a great drum take. So we did that in a professional studio, and then tracked everything else in Ben's studio, and he mixed it as well in his studio. And he's super talented. So I think the new album sounds fantastic in my opinion. But then we sent it off to Dan Swano for mastering. He's mastered all of our releases so far. But yeah, I mean, Ben's got the skill and he's got the technology to make it sound good. So why go anywhere else, And
Mm-hmm.
it also saves us a bunch of money, so we don't have to pay the record label back for like 20 years.
Yeah, and that was my follow up question because obviously, like you had mentioned earlier in the chat that you get money for recording, but then I was curious as to like, do you just pay Ben then with the profound money or what?
Yeah, no, there's always a little bit of like gear like that we want to, get for this recording or something like that. But mostly the budget just goes to, tracking the drums since we did that somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else, and then the mastering fees. Everything else, we just eat it just because I mean you have to pay it back anyway, so why take payment up front? Ben's fine to do it without paying now and just wait for it later.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. What are some things that Chris is into outside of being a ex skater kid, into fucking bear, kind of playing guitar sometimes, well, and barbecue? What are some things outside of those three things?
I mean, first of all, like I'm a family man. I absolutely just love to spend time with my wife and kids, man. Like it's enjoyable. I love it. I don't want anything else from life other than that, basically. Other hobby stuff, I try to stay up on music. I mean, I'm still a metal fan. I love listening to music, like most people probably listening to this. I also like true crime quite a bit. So like I try to stay up on cases that interest me, read crime books and
What do you ever watch like because we all have women in our life who are probably addicted to true crime too. So I get it peripheral, and that makes me then like watch videos on because I'm on the computer most of the time, most during the day. I'm posting news, doing this, finding stuff, and in the background I'll have like I got into like interrogation videos.
oh yeah, yeah.
So like there'll be like an hour or two of like an interrogation video or like some like Dylan, my partner in Lambgoat here. He watches like a um, EWU, EWU. I don't know what it stands for now off the top of my head, but they just say EWU in the videos, and it's kind of like a where they just have some interrogation stuff, and they'll go through the crime scene and tell you about the crime, and then they'll just piece that all together. And so that's a rabbit hole that I'll sometimes fall down myself.
Yeah, dude, that's great. That's awesome. Um, yeah, man, like I don't know why I get into that stuff so much. It's weird, but like right now, there's a trial happening for like these two young girls that were, murdered in these woods here in Indiana, like an hour away from
Mm.
where we live. In the case, it's the Delphi murders. You should look it up. It's just so many
I've heard of
twists
it.
and
Yeah.
turns. So many twists and turns in this case over the past like however many years it's been. It's just wild, man. It's almost unreal like how crazy this case has been. So like I just get sucked into that. And then I recently read a book on Israel Keys, who was a fucked up motherfucker, man. Like he was just bad. But I just get so interested, and I don't really know why.
I don't know why either. I mean, it's very morbid. It's fucking morbid, obviously. And like
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
head, I'm like, this can't be great that I'm just like ingesting it all the time.
But it's so popular, man. Like there's all the documentaries like on just all these
Oh yeah,
serial killers and these horrific crimes. The ones I can't really get into though are just like the young kid stuff, man, where people are like,
yeah. No, I get that because you have
it's
kids,
just
obviously, and that's
I
close to
know
home.
it's fucking terrible. But yeah, man, I don't know. So that's one hobby of mine.
Let me ask you
Another,
another thing about that though before we
yeah.
jump to another ship. Do you ever like visit any of these places, or do you ever like plan to like tragic event sites or whatever? Dark tourism is what it's called on the internet.
Sure, sure. The only time I've ever done that was related to that Delphi murders case. So like that crime occurred at this it's called the Monon Bridge. It's just this park in Delphi, Indiana, with like this long, like decrepit like train trestle that they had like crossed over like before they got killed. And so like we were Mother of Graves had a show in Chicago, and so we ended up like
Is that
driving
the
up separately for
Snapchat?
whatever.
Is this the Snapchat
That,
one? Is this the one where like the guys on Snapchat or like
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that
they film him and he might be on Snapchat with them like one of their last videos?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
okay.
like
I don't
one
know
of the
what you're talking
girls, yep, took a video. So yeah, so we had a show booked in Chicago. I was driving up there, and then I saw a sign for Delphi like on the way. I was like, oh shit, that's only like 20 minutes off the road. So I got it in my phone. I went there and I walked the trail like for where they were. It was creepy as hell, man. Like yeah, I
about.
was like, nobody out here gonna try to take down this 250 pound, 6'5" dude. So like I felt okay, but
Yeah, drastic circumstances different from the
yeah,
fears.
but man, yeah, that's the only time I've ever done that.
I I think I might be into it because we went to Dallas not that long ago, earlier like within the last year, late 2023 we went to Dallas. And that's the first time I had ever gone and I went and saw the JFK site and went through the JFK museum up there. Like you can go and see where like Oswald might have shot him,
Yeah.
wherever that went down. So you can go to the window and see that. But then, like, I also started looking up other stuff that happened in Dallas, and because obviously Dallas is a pretty heavily populated place and with a lot of ongoings. So um, we went and there was like a shooting at a college downtown, right down the street from where we were at staying, and I went and checked that out. But then the thing that really got me with the dark tourism thing, I think, is I was just bullshitting, and I realized Waco was like 90 minutes away,
Oh, no way.
and so I was like, "Fuck!" And then I remember as a kid just watching that unfold, on TV, and so, and then obviously everything that's come on after that. But we went down there, went to Waco, and checked it out,
Oh,
and
wow.
you can walk where the building was, like the foundation is still there, the bus is still kind of dilapidated in the ground, the pool is still there, and
Really?
yeah, and they've built some kind of smaller makeshift church on top of this site. And so, like, it's open to the public, I guess, and you can walk in there and around and stuff. And uh, one of the caretakers showed up while we were there, and so she gave us this whole spiel about, you know, their side of it, and blah 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 and stuff like that. But it was a very interesting situation because it's in the middle of nowhere, and then you realize how out in the middle of nowhere it is because you drove
Yeah.
out there. But now I just watch so much stuff about Waco, and I'm like, oh my god, I was there. Like I'm walking on the same ground.
Dude, that's wild. So like the caretaker came and was
Oh
like
yeah,
given their spiel about how,
yeah.
oh wow.
Her husband died, but her husband was one of the ones that came out before the shooting. Like they called people to come out or whatever, and I
Uh-huh.
guess he was one of the ones that left prior to all this
Wow.
stuff going down. But yeah,
So they're still operating down there these days, right?
there's a
Same
small faction of them down there. Yeah.
man, okay. I didn't know that. I thought the whole thing would be gone, but well,
No,
okay.
I mean it was a very polarizing figure, as you could tell. So I'm sure people,
Yeah, yeah.
both ways, either hate or love it. So, but that was interesting. And so now when we go out of town, I kind of like Google, is there something that I should check out? We went to Seattle a couple months ago for a wedding. My cousin was getting married, and just ended up going to Kurt Cobain's house. It was like, got to go there. So
Yeah, man, I should have did that when I was in Seattle, honestly, now that I think about
it's
it.
very weird because it's in a neighbor. Obviously, it's not a bad neighborhood they're in. He lived in a
Yeah.
very affluent neighborhood at that time, and it's way more affluent now as time has gone on. But there's like a nude beach across the street from that house where I guess the residents of that neighborhood can just go sun themselves in the nude. And then he that house has very high fence walls around it,
Hmm.
in a park next to it where I guess Kurt and Courtney would go hang out, and that's kind of like set the they do the tribute memorial out there. The bench is covered in like writings and gifts and all this other stuff. The one thing that I thought was very unique in this very affluent neighborhood was there's also like a squatter in the woods, like in the trees, right next to Kurt's house. So there's a guy in a tent that's right there, and I remember I mentioned it on Facebook after we got back, and it may not be the same person or the same green tent that was there, but many people years prior have also seen that tent there. So
Huh.
it's very
Oh, and
interesting.
normally you think those affluent neighborhoods would try to shoo them away.
But it's also, the Pacific Northwest, so they're a
I know, dude.
little more lenient.
Seattle was amazing, dude. I'm in Indiana, dude. Like very conservative and not
Yeah.
cool at all. But when I went out there, it was so liberal and refreshing, honestly.
I was thinking it was going to be, I mean, because I live in Florida, and so I only see Seattle via the news or the internet or, TV or whatever. I had gone to San Francisco the year before, and it wasn't nearly as bad. But obviously, this is like shortly after. I mean, this is years after COVID and after whatever has gone down. But it wasn't nearly as bad. The wildest thing I think that I saw in Seattle was just like the drug use on the streets was crazy. I'm not used to that because I live
Yeah.
here. But overall, I was very impressed with Seattle. I would go back to Seattle in a heartbeat. It's the once you get outside of Seattle and you get to the rural areas, because that's where the wedding and stuff was, and we went to other places and visited that. It gets very I'll say redneck because it's very redneck here sometimes. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very rednecky out there, and it's a different
Really,
type of redneck, so it's weird.
I've heard some wild things about the rural Pacific Northwest. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or whatever, but I've heard some crazy things.
You should check
But
out because you're a crime guy. There's a guy who used to live. I watched a documentary. It's on Netflix or Hulu or something like that. But there's a bank robber from the 80s and 90s who like built his own big, huge tree house out in the woods somewhere, and he would just rob banks for like years.
oh, holy shit, that sounds right up my
Yeah,
alley.
yeah. I don't know I can't remember the name of it or anything like that, but definitely Google that. That was a good thing.
Fucking
Um,
treehouse bank robber. I can find that
Bam, that's basically it. Yeah, and the treehouse is insane because he was like a smart guy. Like he was like an architect or something like that just was like, screw it, I'm just gonna rob banks. And obviously this is in like late '80s, early '90s when like you could just slip a note and walk in and out. But he would
Yeah.
use like a whole disguise, and Point Break I think it was based off of the movie. Or
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think the movie was based off of this. Um, Before I cut you loose, Chris, I would like you were going to ask me a question about Florida barbecue. I don't know if you did or did.
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about it. So, like, a Florida barbecue style is it just like the Georgia style kind of creeping in, or Alabama style,
It's
or
a little bit of that, and I think Florida is one of those places where everyone moves to. So at some point, there's a lot of Ohio people that live here in Florida. There's a lot of Northerners that live here in Florida. So we get a little bit of everything. Not that they do barbecue well. I'm not gonna say that the North does barbecue well at all. No offense,
yeah,
Chris, but it's a very mixed style, I guess. And there's a lot of like hunting is pretty big down here too. There's a lot of deer, and people do eat squirrels and other little vermin and stuff like that. So,
alligators, like, or
oh yeah, yeah,
gators.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you ever had gator?
I like only in like some sort of like ball thing. I don't know, like with like
Yeah,
bread mix or whatever. I've never had just like straight up grilled alligator.
I've never done that either. I've had it fried, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
definitely chicken. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Dinosaur
Well,
chicken. Yeah, it's good.
sort chicken.
I
Amazing.
don't eat frog legs or anything weird like that, but gator tails, I'll definitely get into that.
Okay. I'll have to be on the lookout.
Yeah, so maybe one day when you have a weekender down here in the southeast, you can get some gator tail fresh because I don't know if you guys have gators up there, but we got a plenty of them down here. You know,
Yeah. Okay. Now that's a plan, dude. I'm totally doing that.
they're basically like almost evasive. So like you can hunt them and shoot them in the head. They want you to go out there and do that. But yeah, so yeah, like the I'm gonna try to say it again. The periat of absence, right?
Periapt.
Periapt,
That's
periapt,
there you
silent T like dactyl.
go.
Uh, yeah, of absence came out October 18th, which was Friday as of recording this, but you will hear this a week or two afterwards. Definitely go check it out. Mother of Graves, Indianapolis melodic death doom band. If you want to see them live, you might have to wait for that one show a year in Indy, but or catch them at a cool festival. But Chris, is there anything you want to kind of like say to everybody before you leave here?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. But yeah, please, I mean, if you're into death metal, doom metal, melodic death doom, please check out our album, The Periaptive Absence, on Profound Lore Records. You know, we've got a couple cool vinyl variants plus the regular black vinyl, CDs, cassettes. We have awesome merch out now with that cool cover painting on it and a bunch of other stuff coming up. Grab yourself a vinyl or cassette if you want to before they sell out because those are limited. Yeah, and you know we're gonna have some. We've got a couple album release shows coming up. One in Indy in November and one in Chicago in November. So check our one of our socials or our website for those dates. And then we will have some show announcements coming up very soon. So just yeah, follow us on the internet somewhere if you care to see us live. But
Yeah, and it kind of is Lambgoat approved. Many of the writers do love the new album, so for what that's worth, that listener, watcher, viewer, take that for what that's worth. All right, Chris, thank you for your time, and I think I'm gonna try to maybe get some barbecue for lunch.
sounds like a fine idea. Go
Yeah.
for it.
All right, take it easy, man.
Cool. Thank you. You too.